Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Junia Doan's Park. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is Dr. Alex Tokarev, Associate Professor of Economics and Philosophy at Northwood University. Welcome, Alex. We have a disparate audience, so I wondered if you mind telling us, from your point of view, what is economics?
Economics is a study of basically everything. It studies human beings. It studies the choices we make. It's a science of human behavior, the way we interact with each other, whether it's in terms of producing stuff, exchanging things, consuming. The way we interact with the government is also studied by economists. Any area of human interaction is a focus of some economists' research.
So the sociologists might say the same thing, though. How is it different?
There are a bunch of different social studies. Economics is mostly focused with those interactions which lead to the production of wealth. And by wealth, we don't mean money, we don't mean gold. Wealth is the goods and services that we as consumers can afford to enjoy.
Is it only things, or is it does it bleed into relationships?
It does. There are plenty of economic considerations that people have in mind when they choose with whom to associate, including marriage. So there are economists who study marriage, economists who study religion, the impact of religion on economic choices. It's about, as I said, everything. That's why they call it the imperial science. It's the only one of the social studies which has been recognized by the Nobel Committee. And so every year someone receives a Nobel Prize in economics.
I guess what I'm asking for when you talk about philosophy and economics, what does philosophy contribute or the base of, or why would you speak of it?
Philosophy comes from two Greek words. One, philo, it means love, and the other, Sophia, which is the city where I grew up. Sofia is the capital of Bulgaria, means wisdom. So it's love of wisdom. And philosophy in ancient Greece developed as this pursuit of understanding how the world works, including the world of human beings. And so over the centuries, there were two branches of philosophy. One, natural philosophy, and that's where we get things like physics, chemistry, biology. The other is moral philosophy, and when the first modern economist, Adam Smith, was teaching in Scotland, he was not labeled an economist, he was a moral philosopher. So economics comes from moral philosophy. It's a branch of it, just like every other social science.
So has economics moved to embrace inner satisfaction or inner contentment or inner happiness, or does it solely have to do with things?
Economics has changed a lot, especially in the 20th century, when my colleagues at the time were looking for, I guess, more prestige, and they were adopting gradually the tools from the natural sciences. Economics became more heavily reliant on mathematics, on statistics, and that changed the focus. And that, of course, also produced very undesirable, in my opinion, outcomes, such as politicians using economics research to manipulate
Yes.
uh, societies to socially engineer certain outcomes. That is sad. The over reliance on those tools has caused a lot of damage, both to economics. We have produced tons of research that is completely useless from a practical standpoint, but it has justified a lot of harmful economic policies. In my opinion, uh, it would be great if one day we abandon all these macroeconomic aggregates, if we stop taking measurement of, let's say, the GDP, the gross domestic product, because when we supply that kind of data as professionals to the politicians use it as an excuse to implement policies that enrich their sponsors of their campaigns and acquire more power over the individuals.
So, what would be an example or two of things besides the average GDP, that you suggest or prefer not to have them do?
Yeah, I would prefer them to rely on the Austrian approach to understanding human action. And that is, we are all human beings. We understand what motivates us. We don't really need empirical research to prove any of the laws of economics. Economics is not a quantitative science, although most of my colleagues would disagree, and most of my colleagues make careers on quantitative research. And while there might be certain value to some of it when it relates to um, certain industries, trying to figure out how to optimize certain outcomes. When it comes to government policy, as Hayek explained, it is impossible to rely on a central planner to acquire all the relevant data and process it in a way that would replace the decision making of millions and billions of individuals, consumers and producers, who are the only ones who have the information about the local circumstances of time and place. We need to rely on decentralized decision making. So any macroeconomic data is not only useless, it is harmful because it, once again, it gives the politician an excuse to point to a problem and to tell the people, I have the solution, I know how to fix it. I have those economists who can gather the data and they can just solve a mathematical problem. Given the resources on one end, given the consumer needs on the other hand, we can find the optimal way to connect the two sides of this equation. We can find a central plan that works for everybody. That is a dangerous delusion.
I find people who like to be bosses would gravitate to that because they get to tell people what to do, even if they think it's for their own good.
Yeah, I
But
forgot who said it, that it is the most useless and dangerous pursuit to try to command the lives of other people, people you don't know. And the least qualified for that kind of a job is a person who intentionally seeks to do it.
so, in your own life, you grew up in another country and another economic system. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was born in Bulgaria back in the 1960s during the Cold War. I grew up from the age of probably 2 years old when both my parents had to work. It was mandatory for all Bulgarian citizens and every other citizen of any socialist country to have a job. So we had zero unemployment. If you choose not to work, they will kidnap you and they'll find a labor camp for you. So you'll be fully employed. And so, because both my parents had to go to work, both of them were professors at a university, I was raised by the state, starting with a kindergarten, and then schooling from first grade to 12th grade. So all my formative years, I was under the influence of government employees, teachers, and many of them were good people, but they all had to comply with a certain ideology. Bulgaria is an example, and all the other socialist countries, and some of them are still around, like North Korea, for example. These are the ultimate politically correct environments. You cannot deviate from the party line. The government tells you that this is how you have to think, this is right and this is wrong, and there is no arguing about it. There is no such thing as critical thinking. So I grew up as a Marxist. I grew up. My parents actually have a somewhere. Probably I can still find it in Bulgaria. An audio cassette where I was reciting a poem about Lenin. And it went on and on. I remember later in middle school, they played it to me. And I was amazed that at the age of maybe 4 or 5 years old, I had memorized dozens of lines, of verses about what a great person Lenin was and how when people suffered, he came to rescue them. So it was, in a way, a religion. All ideologies are religious to a certain extent if they claim that there is a way for some people to tell other people how to improve their lives. And socialism is the ultimate example of a godless religion. So I grew up as a Marxist, believing that capitalism is rotten. At the same time, I was a living contradiction because I was also very much rebellious, and I was always looking for ways to break the rules and to do things contrary to what the people in authority were telling me. Not so much my parents, because I would only see them briefly for breakfast in the morning, and then in the evening we'd get together and eat dinner and then watch the Soviet news programming and some Soviet movie about the greatness of the Red Army, how they defeat Hitler in the Second World War. That was my childhood, basically. But any other time in school and school-related activities, I was looking for ways to express myself, whether it's by the way I wore my hair, uh, my clothes, what I would draw on my desk in school. And I would get all the time in trouble with the authorities, with teachers and the principal for those things. Uh, so, as I said, contradiction. I believe that communism is right, but I would reject the communists. Anything that the people in authority, the people in the government, and at the lower level in my school were telling me I have to do, wear a uniform, cut my hair short, uh, don't do this, don't do that. I would violate intentionally all of these with great pleasure.
Interesting. What did they teach you about capitalism?
Oh, they were teaching me what Marx believed, that capitalism is a system that was progressive for its day. The Marxists believe that the history of humanity is one constant progress. It's unstoppable. It is driven by technological forces that are beyond human control, and that one day capitalism will inevitably lead to its own self destruction, because capitalism, like all previous societies, Marxists believe, is a constant conflict between those who control the means of production and those who need to work in order to make a living. So there are two classes: the exploiting class, the capitalists, the bourgeoisie, and the oppressed working people, the proletariat. And I see this thing happening again through these critical race theories and diversity, equity, inclusion, uh, the attempts of business tycoons to impose on their companies and employees goals that are different from the pursuit of profit, the environmental governance, social goals, the ESG. So there is a lot of Marxism in America that I can identify from my childhood. It just takes a different form. It dresses differently. Instead of talking about class struggle, they talk about racial struggles, conflicts. They try to pit people against each other. That is what Marxists are doing. In the old days, when I was growing up, it was capitalist versus worker. Here in America today, it's black versus white, men versus woman. All of these meaningless divisions that they create in order to stir conflict and push their ideological agendas on us.
So nowadays, with the internet, you can be an entrepreneur. You see how easy it is to start services and fail or make it or anything. Do the leaders of the communist Marxist group, I guess they don't factor that in, that maybe times have changed and there's more choice about being a worker and even an owner?
I haven't talked recently to many of those Marxists. I used to go from time to time to meetings such as the Union for Radical Political Economy. These are new Marxists in America. Just to hear them talk about contemporary issues and how they would see them in the light of the traditional Marxist orthodox theory. So things are changing very rapidly. One thing that should bother those former comrades of mine, the Marxists, is that today there is no distinction between the capitalist and the worker as much as it may have been the case back in the middle of the 19th century when Marx was writing The Capital. Everyone, I am a proletarian, you might say. I'm not hiring people to work for me. I am a hired employee. I work for a salary. And despite of this, I am also a capitalist in the sense that a chunk of my income gets invested every month on the stock market. And so I am part-time owner of capital. And so is almost everybody in America. Almost everyone has some savings that are invested on Wall Street, and we are all simultaneously working, proletarian and capitalist. And so there is no contradiction here. We don't exploit each other or ourselves by trying to make income in various ways. And of course, today it's so much easier for people to start their own business. Technology is changing so rapidly. I was just at a conference and there was this space entrepreneur talking about how amazingly advanced we are in reaching to space for profit. We can actually, the title of the lecture was Space Mining. And he was telling us we have within reach, with the current technology, enough resources to sustain the life in a very wealthy life of 1 trillion people. We only have 8 billion on planet Earth. So he said, listen to Elon Musk, go and have babies. We need more of them in order to take advantage of these amazing opportunities. I think the future contains amazing opportunities. We just have to be careful not to mess it up. If we clear the way for people like Elon Musk and every other entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be as successful as Elon. You have small entrepreneurs everywhere. Our school, Northwood University, prides itself with the highest percentage of our alumni of any other school becoming entrepreneurs. 1 in 3 of our graduates one day is going to run their own business. It may be a small thing. It may be a multinational corporation. It doesn't matter. A business is a vocation that our students embrace. It is a great thing. It's something that they should be proud of. When they succeed, I tell them, don't be ashamed if you become a millionaire or a billionaire. If someone tells you you have to give back something, don't listen to them. You have already given the world a lot of wealth. You can be charitable. It is great if you decide to help others, if you decide to help your alma mater. This is giving. This is not giving back. You can only if you steal something.
So how did you go from a rebellious child at school to becoming a professor?
I just followed for once my parents' advice to pursue academic research, and I went to school, the same university where both of my parents were teaching. I got my master's in industrial management and chemical engineering. I only took one economics class actually, and I never attended any of the lectures. I didn't know what that was. It seemed like an easy class. I was completely unprepared at the test, and I failed. I got an F, my first and only economics class in Bulgaria. They give the students who fail in the spring a chance to study during the summer and take a makeup. And so I studied and I learned a bunch of stuff. And in the fall, I got an A. And that's what's on my record, not the F that I initially got. I aced it, but then gradually forgot about it. I became myself a small entrepreneur. My future wife and I were teaching English in kindergarten, and one day I was just fed up watching the news with the slow pace of Bulgaria's transformation from a former socialist into a free capitalist country. It was taking forever, and I decided to apply to study something in a different country. I came to visit friends, relatives in the United States, and one day it was the summer of '98. It was very hot. I was walking on a street in Queens, New York, and I saw a library, and I thought, well, it's air conditioned. I'll go in, I'll read something. It was really very hot and humid, and I got in and I looked at the books, and I saw one that said "Economic Policy: Thoughts for Today and Tomorrow." It's a tiny book based on 6 lectures that Ludwig von Mises, the most famous Austrian economist, gave those lectures in Argentina back in the 1950s. Those notes were put together as a book, 6 chapters by his wife when he passed. And I started reading, and the first couple of chapters were on socialism and capitalism. And it blew my mind. It explained everything that I had lived through. And so the next day I went to Manhattan. I visited um, the University of New York, NYU, and uh, I just met a guy, the economist who talked to me, said, after I shared a few things and I mentioned reading Mises, that small book, and he said, you know what? You grew up in Bulgaria, you like this book. Here is another one. And he gave me The Road to Serfdom by Hayek.
Right.
And it was amazing. Once again, I thought, I lived through that. I understand it. This is something that I want to do. And so I went back. I was living with my godfather in Queens and for the summer. And I immediately started applying to economics PhD programs. One of them in the fall of that year gave me a scholarship. And the next summer, I got married, and my wife and I came to the United States, and I stayed ever since. In my first job, I was given an office, and the professor who left that office to me had left a box of VHS tapes, and they were the free to choose videos by Milton Friedman. So I couldn't have dreamed for a better introduction to the field of economics and in my professional development as one of those economists. I started with Mises, moved to Hayek, and then Milton Friedman. And so I had everything that would help me understand human action and the importance of liberty. And
Yeah.
well, I enjoy my life as an economist, as a teacher.
Tell us more about your life now. What part of it do you enjoy?
This is a great school. Northwood, from the start, has embraced as its mission to develop entrepreneurs, not just successful business people, but people who appreciate the free enterprise system. So we are a perfect match. The school's institutional philosophy and my personal values, they are in complete alliance, and so it's always a pleasure when the summer break is over to go back. I mean, we visit Bulgaria. My mom is there. wife's dad is there. We have other friends and relatives, and so we visit every summer with our children. But it's always such a pleasure to take the flight back to Midland, Michigan, and to get ready to meet the new students in my classroom.
How is Bulgaria going to do in the next 10 years?
It's really hard to say. Bulgaria has a very different political system, and a lot in the economy, unfortunately, still depends on politics. I hope that they will diminish this, especially considering that in the last 4 years, since the ridiculous COVID restrictions began in 2020, the Bulgarian people have not had a normal, regular government. They keep having elections every few months. They elect new representatives in the parliament, and those people can never agree. They can never find a majority to elect a regular cabinet, a prime minister and a cabinet. They are not elected the way here we elect our chief executive officer, the president, in elections. The people vote for someone. In Bulgaria, those people need to be selected by a majority in parliament, and there is never a majority in parliament. So I'm hopeful after 35 years of transition that the people will finally realize they cannot rely on the government to be their savior, that they themselves need to step up and to accomplish what they want. Any area where they can thrive, all they need is for the government to protect their lives and to clear the way from all the previous rules and restrictions that are stifling entrepreneurs in my former country.
I'm a big fan of yours and your life experience because you express it so well, and you have so much energy and gratitude. And you can speak to both systems, literally, having lived in both systems. So thank you for being part of this. And as I say every time, please go out to the audience and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and do it every day going forward. So I'll see you next time.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadonsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadonthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.